It's the middle of the 1st century BCE, and Rome is falling apart. For nearly 5 centuries, Rome has been a republic, ruled by senators, not kings. That's how the Romans like it. They have a deep, obsessive hatred for monarchy, and anyone who tries to seize too much power gets killed, quickly. The problem: the government is so corrupt, so broken, and so dominated by powerful warlords that it's barely functioning anymore. Politicians don't just argue in the Senate, they hire gangs to murder each other in the streets. There are riots, assassinations, wars between generals. Rome is eating itself alive. And into this chaos, you are born. Your name isn't Augustus yet. You're just Gaius Octavius, a privileged kid from a wealthy equestrian family. Your father is an important but fairly minor official. Your mother, however, comes from one of the most powerful families in Rome, the Julians, and one of her relatives, Julius Caesar, the most famous man in Rome, the man who will change your life forever. At first, though, your life seems normal. You're born in 63 BCE, and your early years are spent in relative comfort. Your father dies when you're young, but it's not that big of a deal. Your family's still rich, and your mother remarries. You're raised by your grandmother, who just so happens to be Julius Caesar's sister. At first, none of this seems to matter. You're just a kid. You're studying, preparing for a career in politics, like most young men of your class. But then, something unexpected happens. Julius Caesar notices you. By this time, Caesar is the most powerful general in Rome. He's conquered Gaul, wiped out his enemies in a brutal civil war, and made himself dictator for life. But there's a problem: he has no heir. He has no legitimate son. And though he has powerful allies, he needs someone to carry on his name. So he starts paying attention to you. He sees promise in you. You're serious, ambitious, disciplined. Even though you're still just a teenager, he starts including you in his inner circle. He even lets you follow him during his military campaigns. You have no idea what this means yet, but soon you'll find out. In 44 BCE, everything changes. You're in Greece, studying, when you hear the news: Julius Caesar is dead. Not just dead, brutally assassinated by his own senators. Stabbed 23 times in the middle of the Senate House, the Republic has collapsed into chaos once again. Rome is divided between those who support Caesar and those who support the men who killed him. At first, you're just a scared 18-year-old with no idea what to do. You're far away from Rome. You don't have an army. You're just another noble kid. But then something even more shocking happens. A letter arrives. You open it, and your world shatters. Julius Caesar had a secret will, and in that will, he named you as his heir, not just his money. Everything. His name, his power, his destiny. Overnight, you go from being a nobody to the most important man in Rome, and immediately, everyone wants you dead. Caesar's assassins see you as a threat. They thought killing him would restore the Republic, and now here you are, a teenage kid trying to take his place. Mark Antony, Caesar's second-in-command, thinks you're an idiot who will get himself killed. The Senate doesn't trust you. The generals don't respect you. And worst of all, you have no army, no power, no experience. You're an 18-year-old rich kid who suddenly has a giant target on his back. So what do? You should probably run for your life. Hide. Let Rome destroy itself while you wait for a better moment. But instead, you make a decision that changes history forever. You declare war. You go back to Italy and start raising an army. You tell the soldiers, "I am Caesar's son. Follow me, and I will avenge his death." Some people laugh at you. Others see an opportunity. They join you, not because they believe in you, but because they think you might be useful. And somehow, against all odds, you start gathering men. Within months you have an army, and with that army, you march on Rome. The Senate is horrified. They thought you were just a spoiled teenager. They thought you would be easily eliminated. Now you're standing at the gates of Rome with 100,000 soldiers, and suddenly they take you very, very seriously. Desperate to survive, they agree to your demands. They make you a consul of Rome, one of the highest positions in the government. You are now officially one of the rulers of Rome. Mark Antony is still alive. That's a problem. You didn't come this far just to share power. You didn't fight a brutal civil war, watch thousands die, and wipe out half the Senate just so you could rule Rome with someone else. You want to be the sole ruler of Rome, but Mark Antony isn't going to go down without a fight. Right now, you and Antony are technically allies. After defeating Brutus and Cassius at Philippi, you divide the Roman world. You take the western half, while Antony takes the east. And Antony, he's getting too powerful. He's stationed in Egypt, where he starts a relationship with Queen Cleopatra. Yes, that Cleopatra, the one who seduced Julius Caesar before you were even born. At first you don't care, let him play around in Egypt. But then, you realize something. Antony is acting less like a Roman general and more like an Eastern king. And worst of all, he's building an army. If you don't stop him, he'll march on Rome and take everything. And so begins the biggest, bloodiest showdown in Roman history. A battle that will decide who rules the world, and to win, you have to play the dirtiest game of your life. At first you don't attack Antony directly. That would make you look like a power-hungry warlord. Instead you play politics. You start spreading propaganda. You tell the Senate and the people of Rome that Antony has abandoned them, that he's betrayed Rome by staying in Egypt, that Cleopatra is controlling him, that he cares more about Egypt than his own people. It works. The Roman people start turning against Antony. Then you do something even smarter. You tell the Senate to declare war on Cleopatra, not Antony. Why? Because attacking Cleopatra makes it look like you're fighting for Rome, not just for yourself. Now it's not a civil war, it's Rome versus Egypt, and suddenly everyone is on your side. You have the Senate, you have the Roman people, you have the largest army in the world, and now it's time to destroy Antony once and for all. But you're not done. Not even close. Because Julius Caesar's assassins, they're still alive, they're hiding in Greece, building their own armies, and if you want to keep your power, you have to do one thing: hunt them down and kill them all. You can't do this alone. So you team up with Mark Antony and another general, Lepidus. Together, you form the Second Triumvirate. And the first thing you do, you purge Rome. You make a hit list of 2,000 names. Senators, generals, businessmen, anyone who opposed Caesar. Over the next few months, they are all executed. Their heads are put on display. Their property is seized. Rome drowns in blood. The Republic is dead. And now, you prepare for the real war. Julius Caesar's killers, Brutus and Cassius, are waiting for you in Greece. They have their own armies. They are ready. This will be the battle that decides the future of Rome. And you are about to get humiliated, because in your first real battle, you fail miserably. The two armies meet at Philippi. The battle begins, and almost immediately, you make a huge mistake. You push your army forward too soon. Your men get overwhelmed. The enemy smashes through your lines. You barely escape with your life. You were supposed to be the next great Roman leader. Instead, you just got crushed. But Mark Antony saves the day. On the other side of the battlefield, he completely destroys Cassius's army. Cassius sees his forces collapsing and kills himself on the spot. Brutus, now alone, tries to fight another battle, but it's hopeless. He loses, and in the end, he kills himself too. Julius Caesar is finally avenged, and now you are the most powerful man in Rome. But there's one problem: Mark Antony is still alive, and he wants to rule just as much as you do. And that means another war is coming. The final showdown happens at Actium in 31 BCE. This isn't just another battle. This is an all-or-nothing fight for control of the world. You have 400 ships. Antony and Cleopatra have 500 ships. For hours, the two fleets clash in a massive sea battle. And then, something unexpected happens. Cleopatra panics. She takes her ships and flees. Seeing her leave, Antony's forces start to break. They retreat. They collapse. And suddenly, you've won. You don't even have to fight Antony on land. His army surrenders before the battle even starts. Antony, he flees to Egypt. He knows it's over. And in the most pathetic, humiliating way possible, he falls on his own sword. Cleopatra, she tries to negotiate with you. She offers to surrender if you'll let her live. But you don't trust her. And when she realizes she can't charm her way out of this, she kills herself. And with that, you are the last man standing. You have no rivals left. Rome is yours. You are now the undisputed ruler of the world. And for the first time in history, Rome has an emperor. But the real nightmare, it's just beginning. You might think that now that you're emperor, things will get easier. Wrong, because ruling Rome isn't about having power, it's about surviving. Remember, Romans hate kings. They just killed Julius Caesar for acting like one. If you look like a dictator, they'll kill you too. So you have to play a very careful game. You start by pretending Rome is still a republic. You let the Senate keep its titles. You act humble. You pretend that you don't even want power. Meanwhile, you slowly take control of everything. You make yourself commander of all Roman legions. You control the economy, the laws, the government. And before they even realize what's happened, you've turned Rome into an empire. Without anyone realizing it, you are no longer Gaius Octavius. You are Augustus Caesar. And you will rule for the next 40 years. But the longer you rule, the more paranoid you become. Because you've learned one thing about power: no one stays on top forever. You've done the impossible. You've wiped out your enemies, crushed the Republic, and made yourself the most powerful man in the world. You are now Augustus Caesar, Rome's first emperor. But here's the problem. Romans hate emperors. They just spent the last 5 centuries telling themselves that kings were evil, that no one should have too much power, that Rome was a republic ruled by laws, not by men. And now, you've just made yourself the one-man ruler of the empire. If you're not careful, you'll end up stabbed to death like Julius Caesar. So how do you survive? You lie. You pretend the republic still exists. You tell everyone you're just another humble public servant. You let the Senate keep their fancy titles. But in reality, you are the commander of every Roman legion. You control all the money, all the laws, all the power, and somehow you convince everyone that this is fine, that you're not a dictator, that you're just a normal Roman leader. And it works. For the next 40 years, you rule Rome alone. And now, your real nightmare begins. Because now that you're emperor, you realize something. Ruling Rome isn't just about holding power, it's about surviving. Julius Caesar was assassinated because the Senate thought he had too much power. You're more powerful than he ever was. And that means everyone is watching you. The Senate, the nobles, the generals, they're all waiting for you to make a mistake. And if they think you're weak, they'll kill you. So you have to be smarter than everyone. You act humble while consolidating power. You keep your enemies close while secretly eliminating them. You maintain absolute control while making everyone believe they still have freedom. For the next 4 decades, you will play the most dangerous political game in history. And if you fail, you won't just lose your throne, you'll lose your life. It doesn't take long for the paranoia to set in. You've seen what happens to powerful men in Rome. They don't retire. They get stabbed, exiled, or executed. And the worst part, the threats don't come from outside. They come from your own family. That's the reality of being emperor. Your biggest enemies aren't foreign invaders. They're the people closest to you, the people who are supposed to love you. And so you start seeing enemies everywhere. Your Senate, you purge it. You remove anyone who might betray you. Your generals, you don't let any of them get too powerful. You make sure they know that if they try anything, they will die. Your own friends, you have them executed at the first sign of disloyalty. But the worst betrayal, it comes from your own family. You had hoped your daughter Julia would be the future of your dynasty. Instead, she becomes Rome's biggest scandal. She's supposed to be a model Roman woman, obedient, loyal, virtuous. Instead, she sleeps around with powerful men. She openly mocks you in public. She surrounds herself with your enemies. And worst of all, she starts plotting against you. So what do? You exile your own daughter. You send her to a remote island, completely isolated from the world. She will never see Rome again. And years later, when she finally dies, she dies alone. Your only child, the person who should have carried on your empire, gone. And it gets worse, because now you have another problem. Who will rule after you? Rome is an empire now. It can't go back to being a republic. It needs a strong ruler. But every time you pick a successor, they die. Your nephew Marcellus, dead at 19. Your best friend and top general, Agrippa, dead.
Gauls.
Your grandsons, Gaius and Lucius, both die young. At this point it starts to feel like the gods are mocking you. Every time you choose an heir, they get sick, poisoned, or mysteriously disappear. And now, you only have one option left. Tiberius. And you hate him. Tiberius is a capable general, but he's cold, ruthless, and bitter. He doesn't even want to be emperor. And yet, you have no choice. So in your final years you force him to be your heir. Tiberius takes over, and within a few years, he destroys everything you built. By the time you're an old man, you're completely paranoid, sick, and miserable. You've ruled longer than anyone ever expected. You've won every war, crushed every enemy, built the greatest empire the world has ever seen. But at what cost? You've spent your entire life living in fear. Fear of being overthrown. Fear of being assassinated. Fear of watching your empire collapse the second you die. And in the end, that fear consumes you. Some say you died peacefully. Others say you were poisoned by your own wife, Livia. Either way, when you take your final breath, you know one thing. Your empire will survive, but your legacy, that will be decided by the men who come after you. You are dying. After over 40 years of absolute power, you can feel it slipping away. You were once the most powerful man in the world, but now your body is failing you. Your mind is still sharp, still filled with paranoia, but your body, it's shutting down. And the worst part, you don't trust anyone. Your enemies are waiting for you to die. Some are probably speeding up the process. Your wife, Livia, the woman who has been by your side for decades. You don't even trust her. Some whisper that she's been poisoning your food. Slowly, carefully, making sure that when you die it happens on her terms, not yours. But no matter what you do, you are going to die. And the only question left, what happens next? Because you spent your entire life building an empire. You crushed your rivals. You bent Rome to your will. You ruled as a god. But now, your legacy is out of your hands. And you know deep down that everything you built could be destroyed the second you take your last breath. Your final days are a blur of pain, paranoia, and regret. You aren't dying in battle. You aren't dying in a grand moment of glory. You're just rotting away. Your body is so broken that you can barely stand. Some days you can't even hold down food. Your once great empire runs without you now, and you can feel it. They are waiting for you to die, waiting to see what comes next, and you can't do a damn thing to stop it. And so, after more than 40 years as Rome's emperor, on August 19th, 14 CE, you die. Alone, paranoid, helpless. The great Augustus Caesar, the most powerful man in Roman history, gone, and now the real chaos begins. Because now that you're dead, the empire is in Tiberius's hands, the man you never wanted as your heir. And almost immediately, Rome starts to rot from the inside. Tiberius doesn't want to rule, but now he has no choice. And without your steady, careful rule, the cracks start to show. The Senate hates Tiberius. The people hate Tiberius. Even the Roman army, the one thing that should have kept him safe, they don't respect him. And how does he handle this? By disappearing. Tiberius abandons Rome. He goes into self-imposed exile, leaving the city in the hands of corrupt politicians. And Rome, it starts to decay. Corruption spreads. The empire becomes more unstable, more violent, more chaotic. All because you, Augustus Caesar, were the only thing holding it all together. And now, you're gone. But here's the thing. Even though your empire is already crumbling, even though Tiberius is a disaster, even though your legacy is being twisted by the men who come after you, your empire doesn't fall. Not yet. Because, despite all the betrayals, paranoia, and suffering, despite all the civil wars, assassinations, and poisonings, despite everything you went through, Rome survives. Your empire lasts for centuries. It outlives you, your enemies, and everyone who ever doubted you. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Because no matter how much you suffered, you won. You turned a broken republic into an unstoppable empire. And long after your bones turned to dust, you were still remembered. So, would you trade places with Augustus Caesar? Would you go through the wars, the betrayals, the paranoia, the suffering? Would you spend your entire life fighting, killing, and sacrificing everything just to hold power? Would you live in constant fear of being overthrown, poisoned, or assassinated? Would you give up everything, family, love, peace, happiness, just to rule an empire? Would you? Because if you would, then maybe, just maybe, you would have survived in Augustus Caesar's world. But for most of us, it absolutely sucked to be Augustus Caesar. And that is why power is never as great as it seems. That's it. That's what it was really like to be Rome's first emperor. A man who ruled the world, but spent every moment terrified of losing it. A legend, but a prisoner of his own power. A god, but a man who died alone, wondering if it was all worth it. And now, his empire is gone. His world is dust, but his story, still remembered. And in the end, maybe that's all he ever wanted.